Greetings, dear friends. In this session, we will be launching WordPress on our computer. We will be running it under Docker, so Docker should already be installed. And running on your system, I am starting it. Next, we will need Visual Studio Code to write a configuration file for Docker, as well as a directory on your computer, where we will store the files of our project. I have a directory on the desktop. You can create it anywhere you like. In general, I open it. It's an absolutely empty directory. I go into Visual Studio Code and drag this directory here to start the project. Now, to launch WordPress under Docker, we will need to write a certain workflow. This is a list of instructions for Docker so that it understands what we want from it. And with the help of Docker Compose, we will write such an instruction that we will ask Docker to download from its repository Docker Hub images for PHP, images for the MySQL database, images for WordPress itself so that it can be installed, images for PHPMyAdmin to access the database. For you, these words might not be entirely clear right now if you're not yet familiar with Docker. Don't worry too much. Everything you will need to use in Docker, we will cover in this lesson. You will constantly need to press one button to disable this configuration file. You will be able to use it for any projects. It's not always necessary to delve into this thoroughly, but for general development, of course, I recommend checking out YouTube or somewhere else to at least understand the basic capabilities of working with Docker. We need to add a Docker Compose file with an extension to the roots of our project. I was the only one who opened the Genius Ring of Sleep. This is not the folder of our project. I wanted to create a separate directory for the project, so let me create it now. I am creating a directory and naming it game, because if we have other sites, other projects, we will have a boom in this same folder. It's just better to create a separate directory for each project, and then we will open this new directory in the editors in this way. I have already opened the game store, meaning I opened a different folder in the editor. And now I can create this file. I am creating a new file and naming it Docking Compass. YAML. Instructions are written in the YAML language, and therefore the file extension is also YAML. Next, I will write the body with instructions. If something is unclear to you, don't worry. It's not that important at this stage. But I will certainly try to comment and additionally explain. First, we need to specify the version. We will use version. The second step is to specify the images we want to load. So Docker has Docker Hub, something similar to GitHub. If GitHub stores projects with various code, then Docker stores images. Something like that, a WordPress archive, a PHP archive, a MySQL archive. By the word archive, I mean an image, but not a physical archive. And to specify what we want, we can use the keyword services. Note that I have in Visual Studio Code, GitHub Copilot is installed, and it already suggests an autocomplete for the workflow. But this is not the workflow we need. We need different images. But this file looks like this. It is written in YAML, I repeat, and in YAML this indentation is important. It is strictly 2 spaces. Be careful, because if you are not attentive and, for example, specify 3 spaces here instead of 2, visually the file will look correct, but it will not be interpreted because YAML is converted into data. Language, it is a language that contains data, and essentially everything we write can be imagined as a JSON file or as a regular array, and this nested array, meaning nesting every 2 spaces, is a level of nesting. We are interested in matching with SQL. Therefore, the first thing we write is my with Kiwi. Then we look at what it suggests to us. Let's use the autocomplete. I will press the tab button and just edit it. So, and match. I will not specify a specific version, but will indicate the latest one. Container name. I can remove it entirely from here, and it will use by default. Restart. You need to leave the value always environment. These are variables with data for login the password database, so that you can authorize in this database. Let's specify the password as WordPress. For the database name, we will specify the name of our project, game store. For the user, we will specify WordPress. For the password, we will specify WordPress. Note that these are not the same password. The first one is the password, me, for MySQL. The second one is the password for the user. Port, we leave it as default if you are running it for the first time. Since I have other projects, some ports are occupied, so I will try. Now here, I will change the ports to 3310, 3306. You leave it as default. Volume. A volume is something that allows Docker to save some information. And with the help of a volume, we can specify a path for it to the directory where it stores the database data, so that each time this Docker is launched, our site is not lost and doesn't need to be reinstalled. Because Docker works in an interesting way, every time we turn it off, it essentially kills our project. When we launch it, it brings it up anew. And for our site to work correctly, the database or perhaps some other directories need to be preserved using volumes. We can configure this. The only thing is we will change the paths here. So we will leave this path as it is and change the path in the working directory to the following. Because it is in this directory that our database will be. I will show you this later when the files are generated in our working directory. Now let's move on to the next image. It's important to go back one level. That is, I can't write WordPress here. I need to go back to the MySQL level. So I press Shift-Tab twice and go back, you see, 2 steps to align with MySQL. Let's press Tab, since I will need to write WordPress. Moving to the next line. Let's see if this is correct. Yes, indeed this will do for us. So I'll press Tab once more. Very convenient indeed. Copilot really speeds up the development process. Let's go. Image. Specify WordPress. Specify the latest version. Set restart to always. Environment. So we need to specify the MySQL image since we connected it above. I only changed one IA port, so I'll set it to 3310. Next, database user WordPress. We specified database password WordPress. Database name game store. Note that Copilot has already perfectly understood what data I entered here, and it entered them here automatically. The ports. We need 880 volumes where WordPress files will be stored. Great. Filled it in. Well done. The parameter. Depends on MySQL means that this image depends on that image, meaning without MySQL, WordPress won't work. We will also add an additional parameter, here, links. Specify MySQL in links. And basically, it seems sufficient, and for work, we will need one more thing, and that is PHP MyAdmin, MyExchange, so that we can manually edit any data stored in our MySQL. Therefore, let's connect. Put MyAdmin here. It quickly fills everything in for us. Let's take a look. So, match PHP MyAdmin with my PHP MyAdmin, my one wonderful restart always. Basically, I don't set up PHP MyAdmin environment. I'm interested in other parameters. Leader. Specify WordPress MySQL, root, password. I specify WordPress. And for PHP admin, a host will also be required. Therefore, we will pass another constant, PHP MyAdmin, host, and with the value MySQL. Autocomplete handles it perfectly. Port, we will set it to 8181. Why do I need these ports here? For example, 8000. We will access the site. Localhost /8000. The WordPress site will open. If we type localhost /8181, it won't open the site. It will open PHP MyAdmin. I will demonstrate this to you now, and that's basically everything regarding PHP MyAdmin. If you don't have GitHub Copilot installed in Visual Studio Code, you can install it, or you'll have to write it. All of this manually, but honestly, you'll have to write this file once and then you can just copy and paste it into new projects. Moreover, within this course, during the first few lessons, we will create a starter project, a template that can be used for all future websites. So you can save it for yourself at the initial stage and not have to repeat these steps every time for each new website, just launch it as an existing boilerplate. In this setup, we configured MySQL, we configured PHP, we configured WordPress. We didn't configure PHP because PHP is already inside the image, WordPress. But sometimes for PHP, you need to set some configurations. Look, guys, here's what I do. I also set my PHP ini file in the volume for my configurations. So here at the root of our project, we need to create this working folder SRB. This folder is where we have the database, where we have the folder with WordPress files. And in this folder, I create a new file with the extension into this file. And I can set my configurations because for some projects, you need to increase the memory limit. For others, you need to decrease it. To conduct some tests, I use this trick. And let's set some basic data. For example, a file from loads with a key. Next, we can set the memory limit, not 256, but let's make it 1024. This is unnecessary. I don't have to write it. Moving on. What else can we set? Here it suggests a great max file size since we are working with WordPress itself. And these parameters always allow you to upload large files to the admin panel, which usually have to be done manually. Increasing the post max size is also great. Let's add max execution time. It's great. Let's increase it to 1200. And max input time, let's make it 2000. If you are new to development and don't understand what this file is for, don't worry. This is a simple configuration file, and with it I just increased the limits of this server, which in Docker will handle our site on WordPress, so that you can upload large files through the admin panel and not get a 500 error and so on. I am deliberately demonstrating this here so that you know how to do it and configure it. And the second point, in Docker, as I already told you, it will erase all this data, and to ensure it always looks here into this folder, we need to, here for our WordPress image, since that's where the image with PHP is, we also need to set an additional volume. Let's set it up for this purpose. And note, Copilot is already suggesting to add it, but I will of course confirm. The name is incorrect here. We have custom, but it still saves time, both in terms of the root and here as well, custom. Wonderful. I am very pleased that Cupola saved me a few minutes, but I'm afraid that you guys, even if you install it, won't have this autofill because after all, it's tied to Pavel and my profile and it looks at my code. From my other projects, I assume that's why it filled in the data for me so quickly and accurately. Most likely, you'll have to manually enter it. But I will try to attach the source code to the lesson so you can copy-paste it to do it faster. But it's better, of course, to write it out yourself. That way you'll get a feel for it and further study the topic. All right, let's open Docker and take a look. We don't have any running containers here. To run this file, guys, we need to execute a command. I'll open the terminal. I'll open it right away, right here in Visual Studio Code. I usually open it like this. I click on this icon here and select the terminal. And right here, you see I essentially have the game story directory open. That is the directory we are currently working in. You can use PowerShell or the terminal on Mac. It all depends on what you're used to. And we need to write the following command, docker compose. Space dav dash do like this. This command will start it for us, and on the first run, it will download these images and create containers. Note the credit start, meaning the game store default was created because it didn't exist. The others start because both match my square and match pitch in my admin and match WordPress. I already have them on my machine. From other projects, you don't have them. Therefore, this process will take not a few seconds like it does for me, but a few minutes because it will first need to download them from the internet. You will see all this here, how it looks. But for you, this process will take a bit more minutes than it does for me now. If I return to Docker, I have the game store project here. I'll open it. I see the match of MySQL with the ports that I set, and I see the match for phpMyAdmin. Again, the ports that I set, and WordPress. With the ports, I can click here and the site will open, or here. Let me just manually open the tab, 8,000. This is the path we need to follow. This is a very good sign, and at the same time not very good, meaning it's good because our server and site have started. This WordPress error is being processed. But this is an error indicating that there is no connection to the database and our installer cannot start. We will fix it now. The good news is that everything started wonderfully. Let's pay attention. We have a WordPress directory. Here are all the WordPress files, and then a directory with the database, all the database files. But this is a working folder. We are not interested in it. All our files that we will write them next to it in this setup, but we will return to this later. Now we need to solve the issue with the connection. That is, somewhere we made a typo. Maybe we wrote the port incorrectly. So WordPress. It seems the word WordPress is correct everywhere. Let's check the game store ID. This game store is also correct. Maybe there's an error here. Maybe it needs to be set externally. Let's try it. We changed this file and Docker compose, starting it anew. And it recreated it. Take note. Let's try to take a look now. And now the installer has started. Excellent. We need to set this one. Remember, this is the internal port. This is the external port. After all, we set the second one here. Next, it's just a small step. We need to proceed with the installation now. And here, guys, take a look. The first time I run Docker, it offers me the installation. If I hadn't set up the volumes during the launch of the second time, third time through Docker, it would ask for installation every time. And installation means that the database is created from scratch and all the information you are working with is lost. And to prevent it from being lost, we specifically create volumes and save the database. On the desktop, I will use very simple passwords, but I do not recommend you use them. We install WordPress, wonderful, and log into the admin panel. And so you saw how we, with the help of one file, a few lines of code, and running a command on the work computer, launched WordPress. We will use this site in the course. Next, if we want to access phpMyAdmin, remember, we have port 8181. We simply go to localhost 8181. The login and password are the ones we set. I believe we set WordPress. I always use WordPress to avoid mistakes. And here I am inside this database, and here I can work with the game story database. Here are all the tables that WordPress installed. Now, you don't have to remember this command and write it manually. You can start or stop the project directly in Docker. That is, here you can click ikey, stop, and the site will stop. It disappeared for me because I have this tab set to show only running containers. It's not running now, so it disappeared. I have many different sites there, so I just hid them. If I go to the site via path 8000, nothing will load anymore because the container is destroyed. You see, the site does not exist. I can start it either with a command or by clicking in Docker. Through the terminal, like this. But you can do it using this button. That is, it won't disappear for you. You disable it, and instead of a square, there will just be an arrow to start it. And if we check now, the site loads. Wonderful. We have completed the task for this lesson.